You know, history is just full of these legendary conquerors, right? But think about it. Most of them kind of started at the top. So how in the world does a kid from some remote island, a total outsider who got bullied, end up becoming the master of Europe? Well, let's get into it. I mean, when you think about the real heavy hitters, you're thinking of these epic origin stories. Alexander the Great, son of a king. Julius Caesar. His family literally claimed they were descended from the goddess Venus. And then you've got Napoleon. He was from this minor noble family on Corsica, an island that was, well, pretty impoverished, and had only just been conquered by France. It's not exactly the epic launchpad you'd expect for an emperor, right? And things did not get any easier from there. His family manages to scrape together enough cash to send him to military school over in mainland France, and he was a complete outsider. His classmates just relentlessly made fun of him for his thick Corsican accent and the fact that his family wasn't rich or important. You can just imagine the massive chip that put on his shoulder. It gave him this relentless drive to prove he was better than every single one of them. Okay, so let's talk about the system he was fighting against, the Ancien Régime. This was the old regime, basically a super rigid social ladder. Where you were born determined your entire life. In the army, promotions didn't go to the most talented guys. Nope, they went to the well-connected sons of big-shot aristocrats. So for someone like Napoleon, who was brilliant and super ambitious, but a total nobody, this was a brick wall, an infuriating dead end. But then, 1789 happened. The French Revolution just explodes, and it completely shatters that old system. The whole promise of the revolution was equality. And in the military, that meant this radical new idea. You get promoted based on merit, on how good you actually are. All of a sudden, the path to the top was just wide open for anyone with talent and ambition, no matter where you came from. This was Napoleon's chance. This was his moment. And man, he didn't just walk through that open door, he kicked it clean off its hinges. So check this out. 1793, he brilliantly handles the artillery at the siege of Toulon, and boom, he's promoted to general. Just 2 years later, he puts down this royalist uprising in Paris with what he called a whiff of grape shot, and boom, promoted again. By 1796, he's got command of his own army. I mean, his rise was just meteoric. It was a direct result of the revolutionary chaos, which was now rewarding pure, raw talent. So this brings us to his first major command, the Army of Italy. And let me tell you, this army was a total mess. The soldiers were demoralized, they barely had any equipment, and everyone considered it a sideshow. The real action, the main French attack, was supposed to happen up in Germany. But Napoleon, he turns that sideshow into the main event. He completely galvanizes his troops, he masterfully splits his enemies apart, and he leads from the front. At the Battle of Lodi, he was right there in the thick of it, literally aiming cannons himself. People were basically saying, wow, okay, this guy is really, really good at this. But for Napoleon himself, this victory just confirmed what he already felt deep down, that he was a man of destiny. And you gotta hear this. While the main French armies were totally stalled in Germany, Napoleon's scrappy little force just tears through Italy and forces Austria to sue for peace. He single-handedly knocks a major European power out of the war. And he did all this at just 28 years old. The key takeaway here is that his reputation was now absolutely legendary all across Europe. Okay, so what's next? Well, the government sends him off to Egypt, hoping he can mess with British trade routes. Now, the campaign itself was kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. But Napoleon was an absolute master of propaganda. He actually abandons his army there, sails back to France, and spins the whole thing as another incredible, heroic victory. So he arrives back in Paris even more popular than before, and you can bet he was ready to seize power. At this point, the French government was just a corrupt, unpopular mess. So a key politician sees an opportunity. He goes to the super popular General Napoleon with a plan for a coup d'etat. They cook up a fake plot to scare the government, convince them to move to an isolated palace for their own protection, and then they surround the place with soldiers loyal to Napoleon. It was a chaotic day full of intimidation, but by the end of it, a new constitution was written, and Napoleon, at only 30 years old, comes out on top as the first consul. He was now the undisputed leader of France. All right, so now he's got the political power. But winning battles is one thing. Could this soldier actually govern a country? Well, the answer turned out to be a huge, resounding yes. He took all the chaos left over from the revolution and started to forge a modern, stable French state. I mean, just look at this list of accomplishments. These weren't minor changes. He was fundamentally rebuilding France from the ground up,
He established a national bank to stabilize the economy. He created the Napoleonic Code, which was a single, rational set of laws for the whole country, something the revolutionaries had dreamed of. He reformed education to be a meritocracy, so the best and brightest could serve the state. In so many ways, he was taking the promises of the revolution and making them real.
But, and this is a big but, all that stability came at a pretty serious cost. He was no Democrat, that's for sure. The Napoleonic Code, for all its good points, was terrible for women's rights. It basically gave husbands total legal control over their wives. And yeah, he brought order, but he did it as an autocrat. He created a secret police force and crushed any political opposition with an iron fist. It was like he offered France a deal. Give up your liberty, and in return, I'll give you order and glory. And this quote, this one just perfectly captures his whole mindset. He saw himself as the endpoint of the revolution. The one guy who could keep all the good stuff, like legal equality and promotion by merit, but get rid of all the destructive chaos. He didn't just see himself as a product of the revolution. In his mind, he was the revolution. So, after a few years of being first consul for life, he decided that wasn't quite grand enough. No, he needed a dynasty. So what does he do? He holds a vote, asking the French people if he should become their emperor. And the result? A totally, completely, 100% not rigged, 99.9% yes vote. Yeah. His coronation, though, that was the ultimate power move. See, traditionally, the Pope is the one who crowns the monarch, right? It signifies that their power comes from God. But Napoleon, in this absolutely stunning move, takes the crown from the Pope's hands and places it on his own head. The message could not have been clearer. My power doesn't come from God. It comes from me. I mean, the sheer audacity. So now, he's Emperor Napoleon, a self-made monarch. And this single act basically kicks off the next phase of his career, a whole series of wars where he's going to take on all the old, established monarchies of Europe. His goal? Total dominance. And the central conflict of this whole era is basically the elephant versus the whale. France, the elephant, had this unbeatable land army. Great Britain, the whale, had an unbeatable navy. Since they couldn't really fight each other directly, Britain's strategy was simple. Use its incredible wealth to pay other European countries, Austria, Prussia, Russia, to form coalition after coalition to fight Napoleon on land for them. Now, Napoleon's secret weapon in all this was his army, the Grande Armée, and his key innovation was something called the corps system. You can think of each corps as its own mini-army. They could march independently, they could live off the land instead of waiting around for slow supply wagons, and this allowed them to move with a speed that just constantly stunned his more old-fashioned enemies. And that brings us to what many consider his absolute masterpiece. It's 1805, and he's facing the combined armies of both Austria and Russia. He's outnumbered, and they're all closing in on him. So how on earth do you win a battle like that? Well, you don't just outfight them, you have to outthink them. So the Russian Tsar at the time, Alexander I, was young, he was arrogant, and he was dying to make a name for himself. Napoleon knew this, and he played him like a fiddle. He starts sending messages pretending to be weak and scared, basically saying, "Oh, please don't attack me, I'm just a little baby boy and I'm very scared." He knew the Tsar's massive ego would absolutely eat it up. And the bait worked perfectly. First, Napoleon deliberately abandons the strategic high ground called the Potsdam Heights. The Allies see this, take the high ground, and then they spot his supposedly weak right flank down below. They think, aha, let's go crush it, which is exactly what Napoleon wanted them to do. As they move down and weaken their own center to make this attack, Napoleon's main force, which had been hidden by the morning fog, just surges forward, smashes their now vulnerable center, and wins one of the most brilliant and decisive victories in all of military history. And the thing is, he just kept on winning. The very next year, Prussia, which still thought its army was the best in Europe, gets arrogant and sends him an ultimatum. Napoleon's response? He completely decimates their entire army in just 1 month. Russia keeps fighting for a bit, but after a brutal winter campaign, they get crushed too at the Battle of Friedland. So let's just recap. By 1807, Napoleon is at the absolute peak of his power. He has defeated every single major power on the continent: Austria, Prussia, and Russia. He dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, which had been around for 1,000 years. This bullied kid from Corsica was now the undisputed master of Europe. The only question left is, what could possibly go wrong?